The Zarnathi Empire had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They were strong, proud, and feared by everyone. Their way was simple: show up with big ships, demand everyone surrender, and crush anyone who said no. It worked every single time. 47 different alien species had bowed down to them without much of a fight. When their scout ships picked up radio signals from a small blue planet, the Zarnathi leaders barely paid attention. Just another weak civilization waiting to be conquered. They sent one of their massive warships, the Eternal Dominion, to handle it. Commander Vexithala stood on the bridge, looking down at the planet through the main view screen. He could see lights from cities, oceans, and clouds. Scans showed the creatures down there had basic rockets, nuclear bombs, and hundreds of different countries. They weren't even united as one species yet. This would be easy. Vexithala ordered his crew to send a message to the planet. Every television, radio, and computer on Earth suddenly showed the same thing. A tall alien with hard shell-like skin, speaking in a cold voice. The message was translated into every human language. Surrender within 24 hours or we will destroy you. On Earth, panic spread like wildfire. People ran through the streets screaming. Governments held emergency meetings. Scientists checked their instruments again and again, hoping this was a mistake. It wasn't. There was really a giant alien warship sitting in orbit, and they really had just threatened to destroy humanity. At the United Nations building in New York, world leaders gathered in the largest meeting room. President Lyndon Morrison from the United States stood next to leaders from China, Russia, India, and dozens of other nations. Everyone was shouting, arguing about what to do. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight. A few wanted to try talking to the aliens. General Marcus Webb, a veteran soldier with gray hair and sharp eyes, slammed his fist on the table. The room went quiet. He spoke in a calm but firm voice. These aliens think we're weak. They think we'll just give up. But humans don't work that way. We've survived ice ages, diseases that killed millions, and 2 world wars. We're still here because we don't quit. Linda Morrison nodded. She agreed with the general, but she also knew they needed to be smart about this. She proposed sending a message back to the aliens. Tell them humanity wouldn't surrender, but offer to talk about peace. Maybe there was a way to avoid war. The message was sent. It was polite but clear. Humans would not bow down to anyone. However, they were willing to discuss peaceful options. Up on the Eternal Dominion, Vexithala received the message and couldn't believe what he was reading. These primitive creatures were refusing his demands. They actually thought they had a choice. He felt something like amusement mixed with anger. Fine, they would learn their lesson the hard way. He gave the order to attack. Energy beams shot down from the warship, striking military bases around the world. Explosions lit up the night sky in dozens of countries. Naval bases exploded into flames. Air Force runways were melted into glass. Command centers were reduced to rubble. The Zarnathi expected this show of force to break human spirit. They were wrong. Deep underground in bunkers and command centers, human military officers had been preparing for this exact moment. Ever since humans started looking for aliens decades ago, they had made plans for what to do if those aliens turned out to be hostile. Now those plans were being put into action. Major Christine Hayes sat in a reinforced bunker 300 feet below the ground in Colorado. She was in charge of coordinating the counterattack. Screens around her showed the alien ship's position, its shields, and its weapons. Her second-in-command, Captain Ryan Foster, was typing commands into his computer as fast as he could. Christine gave the order. Every missile humanity had ready was launched at once. Rockets streaked up from the ground, from ships at sea, from submarines hidden in the ocean depths. They all targeted the alien warship. Conventional weapons hit first, but the ship's shields absorbed them easily. The explosions looked impressive but did no real damage. Then Christine gave the second order. Nuclear missiles, the most powerful weapons humanity had ever created, were launched from submarines all around the world. 30 hydrogen bombs, each one capable of destroying an entire city, all headed toward the same target. On the Eternal Dominion, Vexithala watched the primitive rockets approaching. He wasn't worried. His shields could handle anything these creatures threw at him. But then the nuclear warheads detonated all at the same moment, creating a ball of fire and radiation that could be seen from the ground even in daylight. The overlapping explosions created electromagnetic pulses and extreme heat. The ship's shields, designed to stop normal weapons, were suddenly overloaded. For just 4 seconds, the shields flickered and weakened. In those 4 seconds, human weapons got through. A railgun round, a solid piece of metal moving faster than anything the Zarnathi had seen, punched straight through the ship's armor. Air rushed out into space. Lights exploded. 3 entire sections of the ship were destroyed in an instant. Alarms screamed on every deck. Vexathala grabbed onto his command chair as the ship rocked from another impact. And another. His crew was shouting reports at him. Hull breach on deck 7. Engines damaged. Weapons offline. He couldn't believe what was happening. These primitives, these creatures who barely had space travel, were actually hurting his ship. Another explosion rocked the bridge. His second officer shouted that they had to retreat or the ship would be destroyed. For the first time in 3,000 years of Zarnathi military history, one of their warships ran away from a planet that didn't even have faster-than-light travel. The Eternal Dominion limped back to Zarnathi space, trailing debris and leaking atmosphere. When Vexathala reported to the High Council, the leaders were furious. How could he let primitives damage a battlecruiser? He tried to explain. These humans weren't like other species. They didn't panic. They didn't freeze in fear. The moment he attacked, they fought back with everything they had. They used nuclear weapons like they were normal battlefield tools. Their soldiers coordinated a planetary defense in less than a day. And they didn't surrender, even when facing certain death. The High Council didn't want to hear excuses. They made a decision. Earth would be made an example. They would send not one ship, but an entire fleet. 500 warships carrying 2 million soldiers. Humanity would be crushed completely, and every other species in the galaxy would see what happened to those who defied the Zarnathi Empire. Back on Earth, 3 months passed. 3 months for humanity to prepare. Every nation shared their military technology. Factories that used to make cars now made weapons. Scientists worked day and night on new defensive systems. The moon was covered with railguns and missile launchers. Satellites armed with weapons circled Earth. Every man and woman who knew how to fight was called up to serve. Colonel Jake Morrison, the president's brother, was sent to command the lunar defenses. He worked with Lieutenant Amy Parker to install the last weapons on the moon's surface. They both knew what was coming. The aliens would return with overwhelming force. The question was whether humanity could survive it. Jake looked up at Earth hanging in the black sky above the moon. That blue and white marble held everything humans had ever known. Every person they loved, every city, every memory. The aliens wanted to take it all away. He turned to Amy and spoke quietly but firmly. They weren't just going to defend Earth. They were going to make the aliens regret they ever found humanity. Across Earth, 8 billion people prepared for war. They weren't panicking anymore. They were angry. Humanity had climbed from caves to space through determination and refusal to give up. They had survived everything nature and history threw at them. Now they faced their greatest challenge yet, and they were ready. 6 months after the first alien ship appeared, the Zarnathi fleet arrived. 500 warships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Their formation was perfect, stretching across space like a wall of metal and death. On the flagship, High Chancellor Morthax himself commanded the invasion. He wanted to personally witness humanity's destruction. The fleet moved toward Earth slowly, scanning for defenses. They saw the weapons platforms orbiting the planet, the bases on the moon, and the small human ships trying to form a defensive line. Morthax felt satisfied. The humans had prepared, but it wouldn't matter. Nothing could stop 500 warships. Then everything went wrong at once. From hidden bases in the asteroid belt, from beneath the surface of Mars's moons, from hollowed-out asteroids scattered throughout the solar system, thousands of missiles launched. They came from every direction. The humans hadn't put all their weapons near Earth. They had turned half the solar system into a trap. Morthax screamed orders as explosions erupted throughout his fleet. Ships tried to dodge, but there were too many missiles coming from too many directions. Kinetic weapons, simple chunks of metal moving incredibly fast, smashed into ships. Drones swarmed like insects, targeting engines and weapon systems. The perfect formation broke apart into chaos. Captain Lisa Grant flew her fighter through the battle. Her small ship was fast but fragile. One hit would destroy it. She led 40 other pilots, weaving between the massive alien cruisers. Their job was to blind the enemy by destroying sensors and communication arrays. It was dangerous work. Every few seconds, she saw one of her fellow pilots explode as alien weapons found them. Her wingman, Lieutenant Ben Casey, flew beside her. He sounded scared on the radio. They were tiny ships attacking massive warships. It seemed impossible. Lisa understood his fear, but she had a response ready. Enough small attacks can bring down anything. They just had to keep hitting the enemy until something broke. The human pilots flew in ways that should have killed them. They pulled turns that made them pass out for seconds at a time. They used debris as cover, hiding behind destroyed ships. When their weapons ran out, some pilots rammed their fighters into alien vessels, sacrificing themselves to damage the enemy. The Zarnathi had never seen anything like it. These humans fought like they had nothing to lose. Despite the ambush and the desperate defense, the Zarnathi fleet was simply too large. They pushed through to Earth and began landing troops. Dropships by the hundreds descended on major cities around the world. The ground invasion began with orbital bombardment that turned city blocks into craters. Then the Zarnathi warriors came, 8 feet tall and covered in armor that could stop bullets. In New York City, Sergeant Kyle Murphy led his squad through the destroyed streets. Buildings were collapsed, fires burned everywhere, and the sky was dark with smoke. His soldiers were scared, but Kyle kept them focused. He reminded them that these aliens could be killed. Anything that bleeds can die. The first group of Zarnathi warriors came around a corner in formation, their weapons ready. They moved like professional soldiers, organized and disciplined. Kyle waited until they were in exactly the right position, then pushed a button. The entire block exploded. Buildings that had already been damaged were rigged with explosives. Tons of concrete and steel fell on the alien squad, burying them instantly. Kyle ordered his team to fall back to the next position. They had prepared hundreds of traps throughout the city. The aliens were stronger and had better technology, but humans knew how to fight dirty. And right now, fighting dirty was the only way to survive. The same scene played out in cities across the planet. In Beijing, Commander Zhou Lin used narrow streets to his advantage. The aliens couldn't use their numbers when they were squeezed into tight spaces. Buildings were collapsed on top of them. In Moscow, Colonel Dmitry Volkov used chemicals that ate through alien armor, making their protection useless. In São Paulo, Captain Maria Santos organized civilians into resistance groups, giving the military thousands of extra eyes to spot enemy movements. The Zarnathi won most direct fights. They were simply too strong and too advanced. But they couldn't hold any territory. Every building was a potential trap. Every street corner could hide an ambush. Human soldiers fought until they ran out of bullets, then fought with knives, then with rocks and bare hands. They never surrendered. Ever. 3 months into the ground invasion, High Chancellor Morthax sat in his command chamber looking at casualty reports. The numbers horrified him. 40,000 Zarnathi warriors dead, 200 ships destroyed, and Earth's military was still fighting at nearly full strength. It made no sense. Vexithala, who had fought humans before and survived, stood nearby. He had warned the council this would happen, but nobody listened. Now he explained what they were facing. Humans didn't think like other species. Most civilizations fought to protect what they had. When they started losing, they surrendered to save lives. Humans were different. Every loss made them angrier. Every death made them fight harder. Killing humans didn't break their spirit. It fed their rage. Morthax refused to accept this. They would simply kill more humans until none were left. Vexthala asked if that was even possible. There were 8 billion humans on the planet. The Zarnathi had killed maybe 50 million. That was less than 1%. Meanwhile, Zarnathi forces were exhausted. Supply lines were under constant attack, and reinforcements would take months to arrive. The worst part, Vexthala explained, was that not a single human military unit had surrendered. Not one. They fought until every soldier was dead. He had seen wounded humans with broken legs continue fighting for hours. He watched a human woman with a shattered spine hold her position because she was protecting injured soldiers behind her. When the Zarnathi finally overran her position, she detonated explosives, killing herself and taking 24 alien warriors with her. The room fell silent. These weren't just soldiers. This was an entire species that preferred death to surrender. And the Zarnathi had given all 8 billion of them a reason to fight. While the Zarnathi struggled on Earth, Colonel Jake Morrison launched a new strategy from the moon. The enemy thought the war was all about Earth, but they were wrong. Their supply ships were vulnerable. Their bases in the outer solar system were barely defended. Jake sent every ship he could spare on raiding missions. Human ships started hunting Zarnathi supply convoys. They attacked logistics bases. They destroyed fuel depots. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and disappearing before reinforcements arrived. The Zarnathi forces on Earth started running low on ammunition, food, and medical supplies. On Earth itself, the human resistance evolved. They stopped trying to hold positions and instead made occupation impossible. They destroyed bridges before the aliens could use them. They poisoned fuel supplies. They sabotaged equipment. They made every single day cost the enemy more resources and more lives. Sergeant Kyle Murphy, now leading a resistance cell in Philadelphia, showed his team the new tactics. They ambushed an alien patrol, killed them quickly, then booby-trapped the bodies. When the recovery team came to collect their dead, the explosions killed a dozen more aliens. The Zarnathi started avoiding human corpses, which created a new problem for them. Soon they couldn't recover their own fallen soldiers at all. 8 months after the invasion began, everything had changed. The Zarnathi still occupied major cities, but they couldn't move freely. Every convoy needed heavy guards. Every building had to be searched multiple times. Casualties mounted every single day, and the humans showed absolutely no signs of giving up. In the Zarnathi High Council chambers, an emergency meeting was called. Military advisors gave their reports. The humans had retaken Moscow and São Paulo. Several major garrisons had been overrun. 3 more supply convoys were destroyed last week. When asked how many combat-ready troops remained on Earth, the answer was devastating. Only 1 million soldiers left, down from 2 million at the start. Someone asked about human military capacity. There was a long, uncomfortable silence before the answer came. Earth still had approximately 6 million active soldiers, plus tens of millions of armed civilians fighting as resistance. The council members looked at each other in disbelief. They had killed hundreds of millions of humans. Cities were in ruins. How were they still fighting? The answer was simple but terrifying. Humans were reproducing and training new soldiers faster than the Zarnathi could kill them. Every human over 12 years old was being taught to fight. Their entire civilization had become a war machine. One council member suggested using planet-killing weapons. Just destroy Earth completely and be done with it. Vexthala shook his head. Humans had spread throughout their solar system now. Bases on the Moon, on Mars, in the asteroids. If Earth was destroyed, those humans would wage guerrilla warfare for decades. Worse, every species in the galaxy would see that the mighty Zarnathi Empire could be beaten by primitives. Their reputation would be destroyed forever. So what could they do? Vexthala had only one answer: negotiate, withdraw, and hope the humans let them leave alive. President Linda. Morrison sat across from High Chancellor Morthax at a neutral station between Earth and the Moon.